What if the collapse of America isn't a failure, but a plan?
I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world.
What if every tariff, every tax trap, every agency gutted, and every job lost was part of a larger design? Not to rebuild America, but to rewrite it. Not to save the middle class, but to erase it. Donald Trump doesn't just want to lead the economy, he wants to own it. And the people behind him, they don't want a country. They want a corporation, with no Congress, no courts, and no one left to say no. This isn't a comeback. It's a hostile takeover of the American system. And by the time we realize what's really happening, we'll already be locked inside it. Chapter 1. Liberation Day or Doomsday? The hidden cost of Trump's global tariff blitz.
The tariffs, you've been hearing about tariffs, we're taking in almost $2 billion a day in tariffs. $2 billion a day.
So, Donald Trump just declared April 2nd as Liberation Day. Sounds bold, even patriotic, right? He's calling it the day America officially fights back against unfair global trade practices. But here's the million-dollar question. Is it really liberation or the beginning of a financial nightmare? Let's talk about what actually happened. Trump has rolled out a sweeping set of new tariffs in 2025. Blanket tariffs across the board. These aren't your typical targeted sanctions or negotiated trade tweaks. No, this is a global tariff blitz, hitting imports from allies and rivals alike. It's economic nationalism turned up to 11. At first glance, it might seem like a power move to protect American jobs, but in reality, it's already triggering a wave of retaliation. Countries from around the world, from the EU to China to even Canada, are fighting back with their own tariffs. And when everyone's slapping taxes on each other's goods, nobody wins, except maybe chaos. The global markets aren't ignoring this either. Stocks have taken a dive. Investors are spooked by the potential ripple effects on multinational corporations, especially those with complex international supply chains. Think tech, auto, and manufacturing, industries that rely heavily on parts and materials from overseas. Disruption here doesn't mean just delays. It means inflation, price hikes, layoffs, and a potential domino effect throughout the economy. And here's the part no one's talking about. Is this just a giant distraction from something deeper? America's fiscal health is shaky. Ballooning debt, rising interest rates, and growing concerns about long-term economic stability. These tariffs might smash that like button, just like you should if you haven't done so already. But no, in all seriousness, the tariffs might make for a great political headline. But underneath it all, are we just masking a much bigger financial crisis? Liberation Day might just be the day the U.S. economy walked off a cliff, and that's because it's a lie. Chapter 2. The $4 trillion lie. What Trump isn't telling you about the 2025 tax trap.
The higher the tariff, the more likely it is to have them come in.
Back in 2017, Trump promised the Tax Cuts and Jobs Acts that would be a game changer, a gift to small businesses, a rocket boost for the middle class. And for a while, it kind of looked that way. Lower tax rates, bigger deductions, and a temporary surge in economic optimism. But here's the twist nobody really advertised. Most of it expires in 2025. Yep, hidden in the fine print was a sunset clause, basically a time bomb. And when that clock hits zero, taxes go up for millions of Americans. Middle-class families, freelancers, and small business owners who planned their finances around those cuts, they're suddenly looking at a massive tax hike. The corporate tax cuts, by the way, permanent. But the individual and small business cuts, set to vanish. So what gives? Why design a tax cut that self-destructs? Well, it was the only way Republicans could pass it under budget rules without making the deficit look even worse. But now, in 2025, the bill is due, and it's a monster. We're talking a $4 trillion hit if Congress doesn't act. And here's where things get spicy. Trump's camp is panicking. The national debt is through the roof. The clock is ticking on the debt ceiling. And his big money donors, especially the ones in real estate and finance, are breathing down his neck. The economy is trapped between rising debt, inflation pressures, and the threat of a tax explosion that could tank consumer spending and crush business growth. Which brings us to an important question. Is this why Trump is suddenly obsessed with tariffs again? Are these new global tariffs just a way to plug the revenue hole? A way to shift the blame when the economy takes a hit from the expiring tax cuts? Tariffs can bring in billions, sure, but at what cost? Higher prices, global retaliation, and possibly another recession. You're about to pay the price for a billionaire tax break without ever getting the benefit, which is why experts are warning that the American empire is in a decline. Chapter 3: Empire in Decline: How Trump's tariffs are isolating America forever.
A worldwide trade war that has a devastating.
Rome didn't fall in a day. It crumbled slowly, hollowed out from the inside while the world around it moved on. Sound familiar? Because right now, the U.S. is starting to look like an empire past its peak, and Trump's new wave of tariffs, they might just be accelerating the fall. Let's zoom out for a second. Empires don't collapse because of one bad decision. It's a series of choices: economic strain, political infighting, military overreach, and growing isolation. That's what happened to Rome. That's what happened to the British Empire. And that's what's starting to happen here. Trump's global tariff war isn't just an economic move, it's a signal, a message to the world that America's turning inward, that it's done with cooperating. But here's the thing, while the U.S. plays hardball with old allies, the rest of the world is shifting. The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, are gaining influence. They're building their own economic systems, trade networks, and even currency alternatives. And what used to be unthinkable is now real. The G7 isn't the only table that matters anymore. The U.S. used to lead through diplomacy, through global trade, through alliances like NATO and the WTO. But now, we're alienating partners, pulling out of agreements, slapping tariffs on friends and foes alike. And in the process, we're isolating ourselves, not just economically, but strategically. You've got countries that once leaned on American leadership now turning to China for investment, or to Russia for energy deals. The global balance of power is shifting, and instead of adapting, we're doubling down on outdated strategies: tariffs, threats, walls. So what are these tariffs really? Protectionism? Maybe, but they also reek of desperation. A last-ditch effort to control an economy that's slipping out of our grip. A political distraction from deeper fractures, debt, inequality, cultural division. Just like Rome, we're looking outward for enemies, while the real collapse is happening at home. You're watching a superpower eat itself alive in real time. And the worst part is, the middle class will receive the brute force of the downfall. Chapter 4: The Tariff Trap: How Trump's economic plan could crash the middle class. Think Trump's tariffs are punishing China? Think again. They're actually punishing you, the American consumer, the middle class, the people who keep the economy running every single day. But here's the dirty little secret no one wants to spell out. Tariffs are just taxes by another name. And guess who ends up footing the bill? Let's break it down. When the U.S. slaps a tariff on foreign goods, say electronics from China or auto parts from Germany, it's not the foreign companies who quietly absorb the cost. They just pass it along. Importers raise prices, retailers adjust their margins, and by the time that product hits the shelves at Walmart or Target, you are paying more for everything: groceries, appliances, clothing, gas. Tariffs creep into every corner of your life. And who gets hit the hardest? Not the ultra-wealthy, not the mega corporations with offshore supply chains and tax loopholes. No, it's the middle class. It's the small business owner trying to stay afloat while their inventory costs spike. It's the family scraping by who now pays 15% more for essentials. Inflation goes up, wages stagnate, and suddenly your paycheck feels smaller even though you're working just as hard. But here's the kicker. Some big corporations love tariffs. Why? Because they use them to justify price hikes. They lobby for tariffs that hurt their competitors while protecting their own interests. And in some cases, they offshore even more of their operations to avoid the fallout, while still raising prices at home. It's a win-win for them and a lose-lose for you. And Trump? He spins this as a show of strength, a sign that America is fighting back, reclaiming its economic dependence. But that illusion of strength is dangerous. Behind the tough talk is a system teetering on the edge, crushing debt, structural inequality, decaying infrastructure, and a disappearing middle class. These tariffs aren't a solution, they're a smokescreen, a flashy distraction from the fact that the core of the economy is rotting, and the people holding it up are being squeezed from every direction. It's the greatest gaslighting scam in modern finance, and you're footing the bill. Chapter 5. From tax breaks to total control. Is Trump engineering a financial coup? Let's stop pretending this is just about tariffs and taxes, because when you zoom out, what's really unfolding looks a lot less like economic policy and a lot more like a calculated power grab, a financial coup, one where control over the economy equals control over the country. It starts with the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Remember that? The tax break Trump promised would lift up small businesses and the middle class? Well, it was never built to last for them. The real winners were the ultra-wealthy and the corporate elite. And now, in 2025, that law is coming back to haunt us. The Sunset Clause is about to explode, raising taxes on regular Americans unless someone steps in to extend the cuts for the rich. Guess who's stepping in? Trump is locked in. His wealthy allies, donors, and kingmakers are demanding protection, and he's delivering. Not for the people, but for the people who own the people. That's why we're seeing this desperate push for tariffs, for financial distractions, for culture war chaos. He needs cover while he rewrites the rules to protect his backers and cement his grip. And he's not doing it alone. Look at Elon Musk, Mr. Chainsaw Politics himself, slashing jobs across tech, media, and manufacturing while preaching efficiency. It's not just about layoffs, it's about breaking resistance, dismantling the institutions that hold corporate power accountable. Between Trump and Musk, we're watching billionaires gut the very systems designed to check their influence. Then there's the war on federal agencies. Trump's team is openly talking about deconstructing the administrative state. Transition, kill the watchdogs, cut funding, purge departments that enforce regulations, silence opposition. If you can't control the economy, control the levers of government that shape it. That's not conservative reform, that's authoritarian strategy. And here's where it gets dangerous. When you push that many dominoes at once, tax code chaos, regulatory collapse, mass layoffs, global trade disruption, you're not just tinkering with policy, you're engineering economic instability on purpose, because the weaker the system becomes, the easier it is to take control. Fear spreads, people look for a savior, and guess who's standing there with the pen, the power, and the solution? This isn't a reboot of Reaganomics. It's not some misunderstood America First policy. It's a full-scale financial coup masquerading as patriotism. And if we don't call it what it is, we'll be too late to stop it. Chapter 6. Authoritarian Algorithm, Turning Crisis into Control. Let's stop pretending these crises are random, because what if the chaos isn't just collateral damage? What if it's the strategy? Time and again, we've seen it. Economic collapse leads to political consolidation. When people are scared, overworked, broke, and angry, they'll accept control if it comes dressed as stability. They'll trade their freedom for order if the alternative feels like collapse. And that's exactly what's happening. First, financial chaos. sunset tax cliffs, soaring prices, mass layoffs, shuttered agencies. Then comes the emergency responses, sweeping executive orders, fast-tracked laws, silenced courts, temporary crackdowns that somehow never end. It's a script used by every strongman in history, from Putin to Erdogan to Chavez. Trump doesn't need to stage a military coup. He's engineering one through the economy, and he's not doing it alone. Billionaires like Musk aren't just business moguls anymore. They're power brokers. They control media, infrastructure, tech, and transportation. They are the state in waiting. The goal isn't just to lead, it's to own the future. This isn't the collapse of America. It's the transformation of America, from a messy, flawed democracy to a sleek, branded, authoritarian operating system. Where the market is controlled, the people are pacified, and every crisis is an opportunity for more control. The worst part? They're not hiding it anymore. They're just betting you won't notice until it's too late. This isn't about saving America. It's about building a kingdom of billionaires. Do you agree?